G'day guys and gal. The true gods of the 40k universe aren't the Chaos Gods or the Elder Gods or even the Emperor. It's Gork and Mork! Nah, just kidding, but that would actually make a lot of sense. No, the true gods of the 40k universe, in which all other gods sprang from either deliberately or as an unfortunate side effect, were the Catan and the Old Ones. The Catan were the gods of the material universe, shit like physics, time and space, whilst the Old Ones were the gods of the warp, although they did control most of the material universe as well. Both of these gods are responsible for the creation of pretty much everything in the 40k setting, bar maybe the Tyranids, although there is a strong theory that the Nids were also an offspring of one of the Old Ones. We've already talked about the Catan though, so it's time for the Old Ones to get the limelight. Before we get started, setting goals is important. It pushes yourself to be the best version of yourself that you can be, so I'm setting a goal right now, but I need your help. 600,000 subscribers by the end of the year. At our current rate, we are just gonna fall shy of that, so I'm offering an incentive. Just like how 420k subscribers at the start of the year resulted in me commissioning the hottest live action cosplay in the history of Warhammer 40k that is on my Patreon for only $1, and then hitting 500k this year resulted in me getting a new tattoo. If we get to 600k by Jan 1st, 2024, I will leak my sex tape. No, just kidding. I'll add an extra cosplay to the 2024 nude cosplay calendar. Yes, we're doing another one. Today we'll go over the lore of the Old Ones, detailing their power, what they achieved, what their final fate was, and if there are any still sticking around. Let's get into it. When the Milky Way was full of milk, there wasn't much life. However, the life that did exist was very overpowered. Maybe as a result of them absorbing the cosmic power of the creation of the universe. Maybe it's Maybelline. Stuff like the terrifying Crave or the incredibly resourceful Necrontyr. I say resourceful as these dudes were getting cum blasted on the daily with hectic solar radiation and lived short, horrible lives, but still managed to become an interstellar race and unlock the most incredible secrets of science. Dudes used dark matter engines after all. The Old Ones were one such race, arguably the first, gigantic toad-like people with insane mastery of the warp. At this time, the warp was a calm ocean, a genuine sea of souls. There was little to no demons, dark warp entities, or predators. It was easy to tap into without risk as there was no chaos or chaos gods. Hence, using the warp, the Old Ones were able to become gods themselves and decided to take control of the galaxy. Thus, they began seeding the galaxy with life, the type of life that they would be happy to share the galaxy with. They created the Slan first, basically demi-Old Ones, before moving on to other peaceful races. They also built the Webway, a labyrinth of tunnels which cut through the warp and allowed extremely fast, risk-free travel across the galaxy. They were wise and believed that all life had value in some way. At least they thought that until life started to become a massive asshole and ruin everything. But we'll get to that in a bit. Now, whilst the Old Ones did also create the Eldar, Jakero, Orcs, Harad, amongst many other powerful Xeno races, and yeah, you know humanity, but don't let the Inquisition hear you say that, neither we nor the races were actually ever intended to be created. The Old Ones didn't like war as it was a waste of life, hence they didn't create warlike races during their seeding of the galaxy. However, the other gods, the Catan, also shared the galaxy and the two gods did not vibe at all. The Catan could not use the warp and were hungry beings of pure energy that devoured stars, basically the polar opposite to the Old Ones. The Deceiver claims that the Old Ones and the Catan went to war very early on in the galaxy, with the Old Ones emerging victorious. However, his name is the fucking Deceiver, and it's not a shocker that he would lie about the Old Ones to try paint their rivals in a bad light. In return, the Old Ones would protect their creations from the hunger of the Catan, so one way or another the two gods were going to end up in conflict. This conflict would come about around the time the Necrontyr encountered the Old Ones. The Necrontyr were a curiosity to the Old Ones, a race that naturally evolved without their help and then achieved interstellar travel. As the Old Ones didn't create the Necrontyr, they refused to give the Necrontyr the secrets to immortality. However, as they saw life as valuable, they also didn't genocide them. The Necrontyr, being a bunch of salty cancer-ridden sausages, got extremely mad at being shunned and attempted to wage war against the Old Ones. This was a pretty retarded move by the Necrontyr, as the Old Ones were significantly more powerful than them in every way. The Necrontyr were clapped and banished to the corner of the galaxy. Once again though, the Old Ones still saw life as valuable, so didn't pursue the Necrontyr to extinction, a mistake that would bite them in the ass. In their exile, the Necrontyr discovered the Catan and built gigantic living metal bodies for the Catan to inhabit, thus giving them sentience. Well, it turns out that the Catan are fucking assholes who then proceeded to trick the Necrontyr into sacrificing their bodies and souls to the Catan, losing their free will as they were reborn as the metallic Necron race. The Necrons were significantly more powerful than their previous form, with strong bodies, powerful upgraded weapons, and no fear. Cause you know, they were soulless immortal robots. The Necrons and the C'tan attacked the Old Ones, genociding most of the races the Old Ones had created and even managing to slay a number of the Old Ones themselves. The Old Ones panicked and for the first time created warlike races, including the Eldar, Rasharn, and Khanib, amongst many others. This evened the odds. The Eldar had psychic powers that countered the Necrons, whilst they could also summon their own gods, like Cain, onto the battlefield to directly challenge and defeat the C'tan. This huge galactic war was called the War in Heaven. Now there isn't a book about the War in Heaven, only a lot of legends and stories, so figuring out exactly what happened is fucking hard as there is contradicting lore and timelines. But the gist is that due to the amount of war and suffering, combined with the Old Ones weaponizing the warp, combined with the new warlike psychic races corrupting the warp with their hatred, the warp turned from a calm sea of souls into a dark evil place. The realms of chaos were created, although the chaos gods themselves would take time to form. In the meantime though, many other dark warp entities begun to form and get really pissed off. Not all the warp was corrupted yet though. The areas where the Eldar gods resided were still calm and pure, but overall things weren't looking good. To rebel against its abuse, the warp unleashed the Enslaver Plague, a bunch of scary parasitic creatures that were drawn to psychic energy and devoured the brains of psykers. In a last-ditch effort to beat the Necrons and the Enslavers, the Old Ones created the Krorks, massive godlike warriors who would be precursors to the Orcs. It kind of worked. The Enslaver Plague would eventually be stopped, the C'tan would be beaten back and then shattered by both the Eldar and the Necrons rising up, and the Eldar would then rise to become the dominant force in the galaxy after the weakened Necrons went into hibernation and the Krorks were weakened by the Eldar's superior technology and culling campaigns. But all this warfare and the Enslaver Plague had killed almost all the Old Ones. Only a small few survived. One of them was Slahai, he who lingers, who created the Hrud and hid them away from the War in Heaven. It is said that this Old One was killed when Slaanesh was born, exploding into psychic fragments that would then become the Umbra, a race of hostile Shadow Xenos. Now while this is all Hrud mythology, study of the Umbra do seem to indicate that each of them is a shard of a greater being, so this very well could be the fate of an Old One, whilst also showing off their power. Considering Slaanesh was born only a few years before the start of the Unification Wars, that's actually a pretty recent Old One. It's also said that the Old Ones created mankind, but not directly. More like one of the Old Ones seeded Earth with potential for human life as an afterthought, or maybe they felt that in millions of years' time, a human could rise to fix their mistakes, bringing the galaxy back into harmony. I mean, that description doesn't really sound like the Emperor at all, but you get what I mean. The Eldar were left as the inheritors of the Old Ones' legacy and granted use of many of their technologies, including the Webway, which allowed them to rule for 60 million years unopposed. However, the Eldar didn't really give a shit about cultivating life. They just expanded their own empire and worried about their own shit. The Orcs still do somewhat remember the Old Ones, referring to them as brain boys that created the Orcs alongside Gork and Mork. As we can see from all this, the Old Ones got more and more desperate with their creations, starting off with the Slann, who were legitimately just wish Old Ones, to the Eldar, who weren't perfect but were elegant, reasonable, and did a solid job of ruling the galaxy for 60 million years. Then there was the Krorks, who were experimental, dangerous, and were most likely the last thing the Old Ones created before their extinction. But are they actually extinct? Well, functionally, yes. It seems as if the last Old One in the galaxy was shattered during the birth of Slaanesh, whilst other potential survivors were said to have left the galaxy altogether. This is where the Tyranid theory comes from. There is a theory that one or more of the surviving Old Ones left the galaxy, then created the Tyranids in a nearby galaxy, and then unleashed it upon the Milky Way in order to scour it of life, which would in turn calm the warp and basically allow a hard reset of the galaxy for the Old Ones to try again. The theory states that the hive mind is the Old One who created and now directs the Nids. However, I don't think this is the case. A, because it rips off Halo way too hard, and whilst Warhammer has never had problems with ripping off other sci-fi settings, it's nearly a near one-to-one of the precursors creating the Flood from Halo. Secondly, we know the Tyranids only came to the Milky Way due to the explosion of the Pharos device getting their attention, not because they were on their way here already. And thirdly, the times that a psychic character has interacted with the hive mind, they sense an impossibly old sentience that hungers, not a wise Old One using the Nids as a tool to start again. So no, I don't think that this theory is correct, but in saying that, it would be cool if there was still an Old One kicking around somewhere. The Slann, their direct creations, were also wiped out, with the last of them being one of the leaders of the Cabal, an intergalactic organization of super Xenos that attempted to guide the galaxy according to their perception of the will of the Old Ones. Eldrad killed this final Slann as he disagreed with the Cabal's plan to try to defeat Chaos. So from this, we can see that the Old Ones were the direct creators of of the Elder, the Orcs, and humanity, whilst also being partially responsible for the Necron tier becoming the Necrons. They are also responsible for the Tyranids, as even if they didn't create them, the state of the galaxy they created ended up luring the Nids. The only faction that might be free of the Old One's influence are the Tau, but with there being theories that the Tau are modified Necron tier, maybe that isn't the case. If you were looking for the god of Warhammer 40k, the Old Ones are the closest thing you'll get to that, despite how badly they fumbled the bag. If you enjoyed the video and you want to support the channel, then Patreon is the place to be, where we have a plethora of not suitable for work cosplays, as well as a boatload of Battlemase 40 million hentai. Hit the subscribe button and hit the real subscribe button for more old content. Join the Discord for more memes and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.